Emma.
Yes, Madelyn.
What do you call the device that Dr. Albert E., Victor F., and Gertrude S. use to determine when the entrance to their fortress goes up and down?
I don't know.
Steins gate control. Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Albert Einstein, Victor Frankenstein, Gertrude Stein.
I see. Okay. I was wondering. I was like, I follow you on the rest of it, but I'm not sure where you're getting Stein from. But now I understand.
I'm glad I explained the joke. Now it's funny.
Now it's funny. It wasn't before, but now everybody's hysterically laughing.
See, I was going to use beer Stein, but you didn't know what that was. I test you earlier.
Oh, now that you say that word, it does sound familiar. But that's not like the first word I would use to describe.
I know. Well, that's kind of the point, right?
I guess so.
But see, you made it that I had to go for the really long way around on this joke. So
yes, it was all my fault. You definitely couldn't have thought of anything doing with
beer Stein earlier.
Anything else.
I could have done it. Well, thanks for tuning in to this Same Room episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast.
I already made you say that. You didn't have to say it again.
It's just muscle memory at this point.
Reflex. It's dangerous. This week, as you may have guessed from my opening, you could call it a joke, we're going to be talking about the games Steins Gate and Control.
I don't know if they would have guessed that. The first one.
Literally, that's where else would that have come from?
I don't know.
Even if you've never heard of Steins Gate, which I hadn't until I was researching for the show, or I guess until you pulled the name from the hat for the show, you'd think by now that you would have figured out that my jokes are just put the titles together and try to explain it.
Well, now that we're in the same room and I don't have my computer in front of me, I'm now thinking, how am I going to pull things out of the hat? But we'll figure that out.
You can use my computer.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to. I'll just have to explain to you how I do it, and it'll ruin the flow, just like I am right now.
Yeah, we'll take 10 minutes at the end and be like, this is exactly how Emma usually does this. But before that, let's spend some time talking about Steins Gate.
Yeah.
Steins Gate is a 2009 sci-fi visual novel from 5PB. It was released on Xbox 360 in 2009, which, as I was saying to Emma earlier, means that it didn't really release on a real game system in 2009. Xbox haters forever here. See,
the thing is, I always make this a joke, but I think Madelyn's serious about it.
I do not think that Xbox is a real console.
Doesn't PB, isn't that like a measurement of some sort? Doesn't it stand for something?
I don't know.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. I could have made it up, but I figured I would just be honest.
5 PUBGs.
It's PB.
5 puppies.
5 puppies. So it released in 2009 for Xbox 360, and then over the course of the next 5 or 6 years or so, was slowly released for PC and computers and PS3 and the Vita.
Yes.
And all that stuff.
And a remake of it just was released for various systems called Steins Gate Elite.
Right, pulling full motion from the anime series based on the game.
Yes.
Rather than just static
Having
pictures.
seen footage of both of them, I actually think the Elite version is the lesser of the two.
Dang.
Just because the art in the original one is so pretty. Right? Like, nothing against the anime, but, like, it just doesn't look the same as, like, the very sort of fairy tale-esque looking art of the original visual novel.
Everything has to be fully animated, full motion.
I guess so.
Technology presses on.
I guess so.
Has to be lifelike, photorealistic.
It definitely doesn't look photorealistic.
Anyway, Steins Gate. Did I already say it's a visual novel? I did.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember if I sort of said that in my description because that was fully 30 seconds ago. So that's gone.
I went through and like when we had like 2 actual games that we hadn't talked about left in the hat, and that's when this was put in when I was replacing the 8 that we'd already gone through.
I sort of figured, so I was like, oh, 2009. This one can't have been in the hat for too long.
It hasn't been. But I realized that we haven't really talked about very many visual novels on the show. We've talked about things with visual novel elements for sure, but we haven't talked about it. I don't think we've talked about a straight visual novel.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
We talked about some very choice-based games, especially pretty early on. Oxenfree is not a visual novel, but certainly incorporates
it's not
that. I mean, I know it's
not a visual novel.
I realize that it's not. I understand the difference. We've talked about a lot of games that have sort of taken that sort of next evolution step. Not to say that visual novels are an unevolved art form, just that they've taken that sort of next step into what some people might traditionally call gameplay. But I'm not sure if we've talked about just a straight up visual novel before.
Well, that's why I added it, right? Because I was like, what genres have we really... This is when I added Halo, too. Because I was trying to think about what genres we hadn't really talked about yet.
Visual novel and 12-year-old boy. Like, shooter.
Exactly. But I don't... honestly, I don't know a lot of visual novels either.
Right.
So I put up Steins Gate merely because it's one that I had heard of, basically.
That's as good a reason as any for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of have to be kind of steeped in that world to know much about them.
It's just because they're, in some ways, it feels like there's so many that it's hard to know, like, what is, like, a quote-unquote good visual novel
what's a significant one?
What is one that is just gonna not click with me at all.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is a visual novel. Okay, now our new game.
Mm-hmm. I guess you could call something like... We haven't talked about Doki Doki Literature Club, though.
We have not.
Yes, I guess you could call that a visual novel.
I don't think Doki Doki hits any of our categories, right? Isn't it between new and old?
Yeah, but it came out during the time we were doing the podcast, right? It came out like 2 years ago.
What is even, like, how do we even define our new games anymore? I don't know. I have not been interrogated.
I'm saying we've done this podcast for 3 years now, and it came out within that 3-year time period.
Oh,
so at some point it fell into our new game category.
Right. But now it doesn't.
Yeah, so we must have missed putting it in the hat. We'll see if it still qualifies at some point. But I was just thinking of other visual novels that I'd heard of, and that's a visual novel in a sense.
We talked about, this is not quite, but it's almost, I think it's closer than anything else. We talked about What Remains of Edith Finch.
No.
It's closer than anything else.
Okay, but it's not, that's not a visual novel.
I'm not saying it's not, it is. I'm just saying, like, I think that just popped into my head. It's like, that's the thing. Because we had a little bit of discussion.
I think of a visual novel having a very particularly distinct style.
Fair. I just remember when we talked about that game, kind of that gameplay discussion that I feel like we were probably going to have another version of today in some form or another.
See, in Edith Finch, though, you're always doing something during the storytelling. Whereas in visual novels, a lot of it is reading. Hence the term.
Is it a funny term? Visual novel?
Yeah, a little bit.
What's a novel?
It's something that you read, clearly.
Not that, like, I mean, of course you can do an audiobook or whatever, or it can be in Braille, and then but you don't call Braille books tactile novels. I
guess so. But it's a little different, right?
I'm not saying it's not different.
Like, you would call it a tactile novel if it actually had, like, touch and feel stuff. Like, Braille is just the way people read.
That's true.
So it's not like it's adding something tactile to it. It's like it's adding the visual element to the novel. Because something like Steins Gate could, like, the way it's written, you could be reading prose, pretty much.
That's true. I just think it's funny. Visual novel. Okay. It's like picture book.
Yeah. Because the book has pictures in it.
I know, but I wouldn't call a picture book a visual novel.
I guess so.
And I wouldn't call a visual novel a picture book.
That's why we have different terms for things, Madelyn.
I know.
Wow!
I was just making a joke that you read visually, so all novels are visual novels. We can move on, okay? 2 failed jokes this episode. Got it.
But anyway, Steins Gate is a particularly famous visual novel because it had a particularly successful anime adaptation, I think in 2011.
Something like that. Also a manga. Several mangas, actually.
I'm sure it had several mangas, but it's the anime that particularly hit the cultural consciousness, even over here in the West.
Also a live stage play. in Tokyo.
Yeah. Also a live stage
I love
play.
that. I love that I've discovered that's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing.
It's incredible.
It's more common that you would imagine that properties over there just get live stage plays every once in a while.
Incredible.
But anyway, and like we said, the elite version takes scenes from the anime and sets them against the text. But the original was just a straight, what you would imagine when you hear a visual novel. There's sprites of different characters, and all of the sort of text and conversations happen in text boxes at the bottom of the screen. In addition to dialogue between characters, a whole lot of like expository stuff from the narrator's point of view, who happens to be Okabe Rintaro, or as he would like you to call him, Hyoin Kyoma. And I feel like this is a concept that might need a little bit of explanation, but there's this trope that's so widespread that it must be somewhat of a real thing in visual novels and games and anime and stuff from Japan. There's this thing called 8th grader syndrome.
Right, yeah.
Which basically means that it's a person in high school or older who sort of suffers from delusions of grandeur, or some belief that they have some great destiny, that they're like a hero in a story or whatever. They might be really obsessed with like the Norse gods, or they might think that there's some great power sealed in their right arm, there's a combination of things in this particular case, but he thinks that he is sort of working for a secret society of sorts, or at least he play acts.
Right, isn't part of that like an act to make his friend feel better?
Yeah, you find out that like 25 hours into the visual novel.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
It's fine. It's not.
Wikipedia did not expose that as a spoiler.
I think you find that out more before you're halfway through the story, so that's fine.
Yikes.
But in some level, he has fun with it, right?
Sure.
Or believes it to some extent. So it's a very interesting sort of narrator to have to deal with. I think that it's a character that really either clicks with you or doesn't click with you at the beginning. And if it doesn't click with you, it can be hard to sort of progress forward.
I was seeing some reviewers who were saying, because there was like a demo that was available, the prologue in the first chapter, and they were like, if you're not into the demo, this is probably not for you. And that would make sense as to why. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the whole video game industry is founded on everyone's latent 8th grader syndrome?
Maybe. I mean, there's some element of storyteller in there, right? It's just when it impacts your daily life and relationships that it becomes a problem, it seems like. But yeah, once you get beyond that, so you're introduced to Okabe, and you get to know him. Yeah. But he's at some sort of science conference.
He's a university student, yes. Just to set the stage. He's 18.
He's a university student. In
Akihabara.
Likes to sort of go and make a scene about time travel. He's very into time travel.
Yeah, he's the founder of the Future Gadget Laboratory.
Yes.
Secret society Emma was talking about. He's roped all of his friends and acquaintances.
Yes,
into being a part of.
He has 3 members at the beginning, which is pretty much just his roommate and his childhood friend. And only one of those is particularly interested in even humoring any of his inventions or helping him with any of the inventions. Childhood friend is pretty much there for moral support. But they've been experimenting with this weird microwave that seems to do strange things with food that's put into it. Like they, what's her name? Mayuri? Mayuri had put frozen fried chicken into this microwave, and it had come out more frozen than.
You know what? That's real.
Going in.
Sometimes that's real with the microwave. You come out, it's like, oh, the edges are hot, but somehow the middle is colder than when I took it out of the fridge.
Yes. And then they put some bananas in, and it mysteriously reappears across the room as a gelled banana.
Is it what?
A gel-bana. because it has turned green and goopy, but it has left the space of the microwave and gone back to the bunch of bananas.
Is this where Gooigi came from?
Yes, I think so. I think this is the inspiration for Gooigi.
Is this where my friend Pedro came from?
Probably. It's so clearly a great inspiration.
It's all an extended universe.
So they start thinking that they've somehow inadvertently made a teleporter. And as this is all going on, they start meeting more people and getting drawn into what seems to become an actual conspiracy.
Global conspiracy.
Yes, beyond one that's just in Okabe's head, and discovering more about exactly what they've made with this microwave.
Wow, for once, Emma is the one who's gotten way too into the lore.
That's not the lore of it,
I know,
though. That's
I
like
know.
the first 3
See,
hours.
That's usually what I think, and you're like, it's too much lore, it's too much lore.
Well, you usually go all the way to the ending, is the thing.
Right, because usually these games we're talking about are like 30 years old, and I feel like it's my duty to be like, okay, like, let's talk about the game.
But anyway, really the only gameplay that you have in Steins Gate is that Okabe gets text messages from people. And you can respond to those text messages as you like. But essentially, like, I think you pick words from the text message.
Sometimes you're literally responding, sometimes you pick a word.
Yeah. That you choose to sort of respond to. So you, like, if you pick a certain word, you can find out more information about what they're talking about there. Which is sort of a fun way to get to know the characters. And at certain points in the story, whether you respond to certain things or whether you choose to respond or not respond, takes an impact on what route you go down. Because as a visual novel, of course, there are multiple endings to this.
I was trying to read the multiple endings, and it just went completely over my head. I read the true ending, and I was like, okay, I sort of understand this.
Yeah.
And then Wikipedia was like, here's 8 other endings. And I'm like, who are these people? What are they talking about here?
Yeah, so basically all the endings, like, are centered around a character. So there's, like, a character ending for each one. And then there's one, as Madelyn said, true ending. That is the quote-unquote canon ending.
It's the good ending.
To the game. Yeah. Yeah.
The fewest people permanently die.
Yeah.
I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all you need. And that's always been something that's interesting to me in terms of, like, endings and stuff. Like, that's it opens up a lot of different ways to tell your story, right? Like, I don't think it's quite, I don't know how this one locks roots, or if it even does.
It was seeming to me, some of the reviews I was reading was saying it's really hard to tell, and that this just goes along with the theme of the game of small things having a really big impact on the world line, because you mentioned that they figure out that it's time travel, right? Is that a spoiler?
No, I don't think that's a spoiler.
Like,
that's the conceit.
The game is about time travel.
Yeah.
So of course, in time travel stories, right, if we're doing it well, which, boy, do I hate time travel stories. And this game sounds interesting, but I have a strong feeling that I would not like it. Because I just can't, I have a hard time suspending my disbelief with time travel.
I think the way they do time travel in this, is mostly sensical.
Yeah. No, this one does seem to respect the idea of you do things and it changes them. So that's more than I can say of most time travel stuff. So anyway, to get back to my actual point before I had to take a little divergent path and explain to everyone that I hate time travel, it just felt like it was an important character trait to establish here. I clicked time travel in my own little text message there. But what I was trying to say is that some reviews said it's really difficult to tell, what messages are going to be impactful and what just adds a tiny little conversation, which is consistent with that theme of not knowing what flap of the butterfly's wings leads to a tsunami or whatever. Yeah. But still also led to a lot of people saying, okay, once you get an ending at the first ending that you get, you really just need to go back, get a walkthrough and skip through the game to get the other endings, which is interesting. Yeah.
It certainly is, it's a relatively old game, although certainly not old in the genre of visual novels, which are very storied
Yikes.
genre.
Storied.
I don't know. You get it?
Yeah, I know.
But they've been around for a very long time. But nowadays you usually get games with like divergent timelines. Usually you get like some sort of like flow chart or something.
Yeah.
So that you can sort of see where you need to go back to make different decisions. Sometimes they can still be somewhat obtuse and you have to find some sort of walkthrough, but it does beg for, like, any game from like more than 10 years ago generally begs for modern quality of life assurance.
Yeah. Well, it's just a different era, especially in terms of strategy guide stuff. Yeah. It's like still a time.
I wonder if they had a strategy guide for Steins Gate. Probably not, right?
It does feel a little, I don't know. It's hard to know. I'll have to look it up. I'll look it up now. Keep talking about the game. Let's see if there's a strategy guide.
I mean, we've covered a lot of it. I don't know.
Do you know that Famitsu voted it the best adventure game of all time in 2017?
That doesn't surprise me. It is very popular. So it is true that 5PB releases a lot of visual novels that have this. So when we say Steins Gate, it doesn't fully like convey how to spell it, in that it's one word with a semicolon in between the two words.
So pretentious.
But they release a lot of visual novels with that naming style, and theoretically they all take place within the same world. So this actually takes place after a visual novel called Chaos Child, I think. And it makes reference to the events that happened in Chaos Child, but it doesn't actually like connect in any way. And I think of all those visual novels, Steins Gate is really the only one that's received like pretty universal critical acclaim in a lot of ways, or been sort of beloved for its story at least. The other ones tend to have like it's their fans or whatever, but in terms of like universal appeal, I think Steins Gate of those ones is really the only one to have caught on. It's not really, I'm not really sure you could really put a finger on why this one out of all of them.
It's a little different, right? It's got that sci-fi side.
Sure.
I feel like visual novels often, and this is just, I have no real experience with them, this is just kind of the stereotype that I've absorbed, often feel just like kind of glorified dating sims.
Sure.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this one, even though it has some of that romance element, definitely has a lot of world building that goes on outside of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the stereotype of visual novels. I think you can go and find a lot of visual novels that have something else going on.
Of course.
And particularly the semicolon series, let's call it. I'm sure it has
it's the Science Adventure series.
The Science Adventure series has some science in all of them. I
Yeah.
think Chaos Child is like a murder mystery type thing. There's a serial killer.
Yeah.
So this one is a little bit, like, that's also pretty common ground, I think, for visual novels, is some sort of murder mystery or visual novel related media. But this one has, I guess, the time travel and more sort of quote unquote hard science elements of it are interesting.
They wanted to make it so it used your cell phone.
Oh, really? That would have been cool.
But they were worried about Japanese privacy laws.
Yeah.
So decided it wasn't.
I mean, it would have been, that probably would have provided a big programming challenge.
Yeah, I don't know how you would have done that.
I mean, there are ways to link your phone up to games now, but I don't really know how that works. You probably would just have to get, like, a related app on your phone or something that would be running at the same time as the game. But yeah, it would definitely add some challenges.
Just, like, how would you do that? You know, it's released in Japan, and then it's released in the West. It just feels like a lot if you're not a giant company to have to run that multinationally.
Yeah, true.
But I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't work at a game company.
I still don't know.
Yeah. Even if you did, you couldn't tell me.
Yeah.
Emma's probably right now at her job working on, like, some kind of app that does exactly this, and she's like, I know exactly how it works.
I'm really just working on a microwave that turns bananas into jalbanas.
Chablanas?
Gelbanas. In turn, jelly bananas.
Guana.
No, gelbanas.
Baniji.
Sure, Bunigi.
Perfect. Do we have to have the conversation again about gameplay and what is gameplay and is this even a video game?
No, I don't wanna.
Yeah.
I do sometimes see people refer to reading visual novels as opposed to playing them, which I do think is interesting. But I don't know. I don't really want to get into all of that.
This one, I just think because of genre, feels easier to categorize as a video game. I realize that's a cheap way to do it, right? I'm acknowledging that that's the wrong way to do it, but I do also acknowledge that, I mean, generally my impulse is to categorize them as video games, but this one even more so, perhaps because it has these sci-fi influences and pretty developed world around the story, and that your choices like have a pretty major impact on events. That makes it seem qualified as a video game, for sure, to me. But that's just like a dumb impulse, though. The fact that I'm having that impulse of this is more of a video game than a visual novel that's just like, let's talk to my friends, is already showing my unconscious bias, or my semi-conscious bias here.
Yeah, I just think getting into what is a video game gets a little bit just like exclusionary and not helpful, right? Like, I get the impulse to wanting to know what terms mean and define terms, but generally these conversations just serve as a way to delegitimize different forms of media. So it's never a very helpful conversation to have.
Spicy take from Emma.
Genres also aren't very helpful nowadays, so...
I know. I was acknowledging it was a dumb impulse, okay? Making my unconscious bias conscious.
But I think it's about time to move on to Control now.
Okay. You have to be in control of how the podcast runs.
I have to be in control of it.
Okay. So Control is a 2019 action-adventure game from Remedy Entertainment.
Yes.
Also makers of previously discussed on the podcast game, Max Payne, and game I thought for sure we had discussed on the podcast, but then I read the synopsis and realized I didn't know what it was about, Alan Wake.
I don't think it's more than 10 years old, is it?
Yeah, I know, but I was confusing Alan Wake with Max Payne.
Yes, they like names. I'm surprised that Control isn't just named
Jesse Fadden.
Jesse Fadden, yeah.
It's a bad name. It would be a bad game name. It's not as good a name as, no offense, not because she's a woman, just because it's not as good at, like, a Max Payne.
Yeah.
Alan Wake. Even Alan Wake is kind of weak, but Wake is a strong... You gotta have a strong last name.
Yeah, yeah. I've always wanted to play Alan Wake. I've always wanted to play a little-known side game, Adam Wake. But I think it was an Xbox exclusive for a while.
Which means that it's not a video game.
And now I'm pretty sure like last year or 2 years ago, it lost the licenses on all its music. So now versions of it don't have the music that it used to have.
Oh.
So that sort of lowers the quality of the game. Yeah.
Destroying video game archival.
It kind of.
Forever.
Yeah. So I'll have to figure out how I want to play that one day. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Control. But it's been a while since Remedy has actually made a game, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, they were making Control at the same time they started to make Control as they were finishing Quantum Wake. No, it cannot be
Quantum Break. Quantum Break. That's the one that blends live action with video game, right?
I believe so, yeah. Quantum Wake.
Alan Leap. We're mashing up all the wrong games right now.
Oh, the mashup is gonna be great this week. Stick around, folks. It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be great.
Control this year from Remedy. Emma and I actually played a demo version of it at PAX East.
Yes,
which we'll talk about in a bit, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But to set the scene, ready for some lore with Madelyn? Let's go to Madelyn's lore corner. No, it's fine. I actually didn't. So I haven't played this. You haven't played it either, right?
No, it's on my list.
You actually bought it?
I have it. It's been sitting there, unput in.
Do you have an actual disc?
Yes, I have an actual disc.
So this is something I always have to check with you. Is like, do you have a physical copy of something that you can give to me?
Generally, I do.
You just told me that you didn't.
Yeah, but I do with $60 games. How about that?
Valid. That's fair.
Okay.
Anyway, so Control just came out September? August. It's about Jesse Fadden, who comes to New York City and hangs out at my apartment.
The Big Apple.
Comes to the Big Apple. And to a brutalist skyscraper building there called the Oldest House. And the Oldest House, little does the unsuspecting public in New York City know, is actually the headquarters for the Federal Bureau of Control, which is a government agency that researches, like, beyond real events.
Mm-hmm.
So, not like the Ghostbusters.
The Odd Squad.
Not like the Odd Squad.
What, isn't it like the Odd Squad?
Is that the Chili show?
Yeah.
I don't really know what the Odd Squad is.
They're like some sort of agency that researches strange events, right?
This is
like
very relatable to our listeners.
Like the mayor who's obsessed with chili.
Chili!
Mysteriously. He keeps breaking into song, I think, is actually the problem. And they have to find the solution for it.
That's an episode of Scrubs.
So it's an episode of Scrubs. Continue.
Anyway, Jessie Fadden, experienced with her brother, who I first wrote down his name was Owen for some reason, but his name is Dylan. His name is Alan Wake. With her brother Dylan, experienced what's known as an altered world event, abbreviated AWE, because this is a game about a federal bureaucracy. 17 years ago, in her hometown of Ordinary, Wisconsin.
Of course.
Just a little on the nose there.
So you know what? I respect people who decide to go all the way on the nose.
Narrative boop. And after that, Dylan was taken away, and now she's come to this skyscraper. There really are some brutalist skyscrapers in New York. They're kind of freaky.
What does brutalist mean?
So it's an architecture style. It's very like the DC Metro is constructed in kind of brutalist style.
Well, it is a brutal.
Boom! Transit zing! But it's just like very imposing, kind of prison-like structure.
Interesting.
So, perfect place for a secret government agency investigating hypernormal events.
Yeah.
Not hypernormal, like beyond normal.
Yes.
But you understand what I mean. Anyway, she's coming here to try to figure out more about what happened to Dylan, led by some kind of paranormal spirit thing called Polaris. And when she gets there, she accidentally kind of ends up in the astral plane, not like X-Men, but kind of like X-Men.
Just accidentally.
Well, she gets like sucked into the astral plane, and then she's like spiritually selected to be the new director of the FBC.
As you do.
Because the recent director just died.
Promising.
Yeah. So then you get sort of launched into this, it was described as a Metroidvania, which, as always, I had to look up what that is. I always think I know what it is, but I have to, like, confirm with myself, having never played Metroid or Castlevania, and just confirming the idea that the title of a genre, Metroidvania, is not very clear.
Yeah.
Or good. It's perfectly clear, just not to me.
Yes.
But anyway, then you run around, you got a gun, you also can do telekinesis now, and you've got to fight off all these people, former government agents basically, who've been possessed by the Hiss, which is corrupting reality.
The Hiss is a good name.
Right?
Yeah.
That'd be a good name for the game. Hiss.
Sure.
Better than Control, right?
Hiss, semicolon, the.
Not as good on a hat.
Yeah, it's true.
So then, like, basically you just run around in the skyscraper, killing paranormal dudes and learning more about what happened here. Mm-hmm. And there are bathrooms. A lot of the reviewers were very impressed that there were bathrooms.
I'm always interested whenever reviewers are like, there's bathrooms.
Oh, they were just like, oh, it shows that this was a real place that people worked until just a couple days ago.
I guess
like,
so.
Okay, I guess.
It's true. You gotta have bathrooms.
Yeah. So we played, like half an hour of Control, at PAX East this March. Well, Emma played half an hour of Control anyway.
Yes.
I played 20 minutes of Control.
To be clear, we played half an hour of
the
demo area that they have prepared for PAX. In that it was closed off in most areas. It was sort of like a square chunk of the oldest house that you could go around
still do a fair bit of exploring. You definitely still got the idea of being able to kind of go a bunch of different places without any kind of a HUD or anything like that. But yeah, it was definitely not the whole. You couldn't access the whole game by any means.
Yeah. It wasn't the best put together demo, I think, because I think there was some sort of purpose you were supposed to be doing, like finding things. So, like, the guy had to come over, like, 7 minutes into my demo and be like, you don't have to keep fighting those things.
Yeah, the enemies did kind of keep spawning.
Yeah.
And it was like, it did sort of feel like, shouldn't I be able to defeat these eventually?
I mean, I'm sure it must have been, it would have been more work, but I do wish they had turned, like, the enemy respawn rate down a little bit for the sake of the demo if they wanted us to mostly be exploring.
That said, the combat in Control, while not a system that I found myself to be very good at with 20 minutes of game time, is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You just get to, like, literally everything in the environment is set so that either you can use it as a weapon or as a telekinetic weapon, or your enemies can use it, which makes it a pretty cool kind of free-flowing style, and is only hampered by the fact that you also have a gun, which means that I cannot play the game.
I think you have to sort of, like, take time between using your telekinesis to, like, charge it back up, or maybe it's your gun that has to charge back up.
I didn't remember that from the demo, but I did see that there was, like, different charging that you had to do.
Yeah, I remember that from the demo, because it encouraged you to switch back and forth between the two in certain cases. And I can't quite remember what those cases were anymore, but I remember that happening. But I had a lot of trouble figuring out where exactly they wanted me to go in the demo. Which I think is more a product of the demo not having any instructions, really, besides, like, a map that they put down in front of you, like a paper map that had, like, mysterious markings on it, basically.
Yeah.
Which, like, points for effort, but if I'm here for 30 minutes, please tell me what I'm supposed to do.
I do think, though, that is kind of part of how the game is designed. Like, you don't get a mini-map or objective markers or anything like that. So I do wonder, I would like to play this game, maybe. I would like to get this game, and if I don't like it, feels like maybe Cookway Boyfriend would like it. So it's like a very limited open world, which has not been his vibe lately, but maybe could be a good way to bring him back out of Horizon Zero Dawn world. But I really need objectives. I worry that this game is not objective focused enough for me.
I think it'll give you objectives.
I mean, yeah, I know. I hope so. I crashed the game when I was playing the demo, full disclosure.
Yeah, the demo had some technical difficulties. That apparently there were still some technical difficulties during release, which I think is why I waited to play it and continued to be sucked into Fire Emblem instead. Yeah. In just terms of frame rate drops, noticeable ones when you are in big combat, basically.
I'm sorry, whenever anyone says the word frame rate, I pass out.
I mean, like, it will, like, freeze temporarily.
I know.
During big combat scenes.
The word frame rate just makes me go, like...
I know. But I think since then there's been some improvements, so I am excited to get to it whenever I chug down this big backlog list of mine.
To be fair, I think the reason that mine crashed is that I was not playing well. Like, I think the reason that it crashed was because I was, like, too close to death too many times.
I don't think that's how it works, and I still think that's a problem.
I mean, it's still a problem, but also... They were also running super... Did you get a hat? I got a hat.
I got a tote bag.
You had a tote bag, because they were running super behind when they were doing it. We went in that line forever. Crash Team Racing, much better demo.
So the way it worked at PAX 2 is that you had to... for the PlayStation ones, you would have to sign up ahead of time because they only had a limited number of slots and they didn't want a line around the corner, which, respect, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I appreciate it.
I appreciate that to a certain extent. But you have to really just be right on the app in order to do it. So we were really convinced that we weren't going to be able to get this demo because we had tried. We
tried like 3 times.
3 times, and we were there at the minute, and it was gone. And then we managed to get 2 slots on the very last one.
PAX hot tip. The first day is the day to get the gameplay demos.
Yeah.
Because we just, like, walked up to Crash Team Racing.
Yeah.
And they were like, get the app. And they were like, okay.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, that was not the case even there again.
Yeah.
So, don't take that hot tip, because it's mine. And I'm sharing it with you for you to be like, oh man, that one's so smart. I'm not smart enough to do that.
I mean, it makes sense, because Thursday is less crowded in general, right? But...
That's why I insisted we get Thursday tickets this year, because now I know how to game it.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, Control has gotten awesome press.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, that kind of... Man, I do hate now, though, that every game that's released here in these waning months of 2019 gets, like, maybe even game of the decade kind of press.
Yeah.
It's like you're just saying that because you're thinking of your like end of year list, buddy. Like you don't mean that.
Yeah. I mean, recency bias is a thing, right? That's why all Oscar movies do it at the end of the year.
I know.
So I guarantee you go on a lot of Game of the Decade lists, and there will be a lot from this year.
But that's different. That's for a different number of reasons, right? Like with Oscar stuff, it makes sense because you really are playing into just, it's not like movies have taken a huge technological leap forward between now and March.
Right.
Right. Whereas with like a game of the decade, you know, it would make sense. You would think, you would hope, and this is getting back to that discussion we had about greatest of all time games, you'd really hope that most of your best games of the decade list would come from the past couple of years, just presumably because games are getting better in some ways. At least if you care about frame rate. I care about frame rate. It does bother me when my Pokédex kind of lags coming up. I'm like, ugh! Down to 15 FPS. Whatever that means.
It means frames per second.
I know what FPS means. I just don't know what 15 frames per second would look like.
It looks like when your Pokédex comes up slow, probably.
I guess. Anyway, Control, very lore-heavy game with a lot of good environmental storytelling, flavor text. Have you seen that tweet going around about A Quiet Place?
Yeah. Is it A Quiet Place or A Quiet Man?
Not A Quiet Man, Emma. What are you?
Are you sure it's not A Quiet Man?
It's definitely A Quiet Place.
The movie.
The movie.
Oh, okay.
The John Krasinski film.
No, I don't think I have seen it.
Okay, so they're talking about how, like, you know, video game environmental storytelling gets a lot of flack, but, like, take a look at the whiteboard from A Quiet Place.
Oh, I see.
A Quiet Place is, since you apparently don't know what this movie is.
I know it. I'm thinking of A Quiet Man, which was the, like, I don't think that's actually what it was called, but it was the really weird game about the deaf guy that Square Enix put out.
Oh, right. I remember that trailer.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was called either, but that was really weird. No, it's A Quiet Place, and like on the whiteboard, it's like, I'll have to show this to you. It's a real funny.
I think I have seen it. Yeah.
It's like, what is its weakness? And like monsters in the area confirmed 3. Like, people are like, children dead 1. Like, that wasn't on there, but...
Yeah, nobody actually writes on whiteboards like that, but you see it a lot in movies and TV shows.
And games.
I think. Yeah, in games.
But I almost said Alan Wake, and that's not what I meant, but Control has a lot of, like, fun kind of, like, people who are in a book club, like, kind of, like, things that you find, and, like, boring office stuff. Mm-hmm. That's actually pretty well done, which is impressive. And you would hope so, because it's in this pretty compact little windy world.
I mean, imagine that helps, right? If you sort of set yourself in a bottle, you're able to sort of focus in on the specifics of that bottle versus, like, open world games that have to worry about setting up, like, a whole society.
Yeah.
That maybe needs a little bit more hammer on the nail than...
That said, she's still from ordinary Wisconsin.
Again, though, that is the type of on the nose that I just have to applaud, right?
Do you know that Kojima has a cameo in this game?
No, but it makes sense to me. Again, I have mixed feelings about Kojima just from Death Stranding alone, but I'm a big fan of most of his names for male characters. Just a huge fan.
Like what?
Dead Man.
Good.
Die Hard Man.
Good.
Sam Porter Bridges, who is a porter that works for Bridges.
That one's pretty good. I saw another good tweet that was, like, comparing him and Yoko Taro and their philosophy for, like, lore.
Yeah, for, like, making sexy female characters, basically.
Well, that too, but also for, like Kojima was like, this character is called Fragile, and now let me explain to you why, and all of this lore. Mm-hmm. And, like, Yoko Taro's like, here's the name. It means what it means.
I mean, people like to read into the Nier Automata names a lot, right? Do you know that 9S, if you really think about it, is German for is not.
Oh, no.
Really bad German for is not.
9S.
But, yes.
So listeners, we're excited to play Control, which is why I'm not giving you quite as deep a lore crash course.
Yeah.
I didn't want to spoil it. But if you've played it, let us know if you liked it, and more importantly, if you think we'll like it based on what you know about us from the hour that we talk on a microphone each week, and also our blog posts and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm pretty confident that I'll like it. I don't know why I put it off for so long.
I'm pretty confident that I will be bad at it. That it's a game that I will really want to like, because it involves like a bunch of shooting. I don't know. I really want to believe I've gotten better.
I mean, I guess you were, but I didn't usually feel in danger of dying when it came
died
to
a
Control.
lot.
I think I died once, and that's just because I got stuck in the basement.
I was overly confident. That's definite possible. And I did read one of the couple of criticisms I saw in this game is because it is this kind of Metroid style, you can kind of accidentally stumble into big difficulty spikes.
Mm-hmm.
Not even really fair difficulty spikes, just like damage sponge spikes, which kind of throws off the momentum a little bit. Which is just tough to. I don't know how you get around that in this kind of a game.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway.
So, are we ready to try to mash these games up?
I'm ready.
This is difficult.
It's time travel.
Yeah. Does Control deal with time travel?
I don't know.
It does feel like in the world. Okay. So, in this game, you're actually a member of... It's a spin-off of Steins Gate, where you actually play as CERN, which I don't think we said this, but CERN is like the...
It's a real thing.
Well, not like that, though.
It's not like that. Not like it is in the game, and it has a C instead of like an S or something, or vice versa, but CERN is like based on a real...
It's the real multinational agency that in that game you discover is also researching time travel.
Yeah.
There you go. See, I've only spoiled that one thing by accident. That I didn't even realize. I was like, oh, you probably find that out in the first, 5 minutes.
No, I don't think so.
I was like, no.
You find out after the big inciting event, I'm pretty sure.
Neat. Cool.
Which
Good.
I won't say what
well
it
done,
is.
me. Anyway, so you're actually working at CERN, right? And you find out about these little doo-doo heads who are researching time travel. And it's your job to go and meet them in time travel Missouri and figure out what they're doing. And instead you're led on a warping adventure where you're in the same building at different time periods. This is turning into, is it Majora's Mask where you time travel? What's the Zelda game?
Majora's Mask is like Groundhog's Day.
So it's turning into that, basically. But you time travel, you're in the same building with these kids, but you're warping to different times, and you should try to stop them from developing time travel, or it will start World War IV.
It's already been World War III?
Well, I don't know how much about the game you want me to reveal, but let's just say World War IV.
Okay.
What do you think?
I mean, that's a thing.
That was weak.
I don't know.
That's some weak praise.
What's the overall message of it?
Don't time travel.
Oh, okay.
In the end, spoiler, you get trapped at your own funeral. In that house. And you can't tell anyone or they'll know that time travel is a thing. Right?
So nobody recognizes
can know
you?
what time travel is. Well, you've been totally... Part of the consequence of time travel is it, disfigures you in some way.
It turns you into a Jelbana?
Exactly.
So you're just a jelly man at your funeral.
Gooigi at your funeral. Did I mention you play as Luigi from the Nintendo properties, Super Mario Bros?
Oh, no. I mean, interesting start. I like the idea of turning this into sort of a Groundhog's Day thing, because that does play with, the architecture of the oldest house, but turning it into sort of a time
Oh, but have
thing.
I just created the Outer Wilds? Is what I'm ultimately kind of honing in on, the Outer Wilds.
You kind of have... Yeah, you kind of have just created Outer Wilds.
See, I was not trying to make it into a Groundhog Day. I was you warp to different points in time to, sabotage their relationships so they don't.
Chrono Trigger.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. People love Chrono Trigger. We
Shoot.
could make a Chrono Trigger for the modern age.
Shoot. Okay, fine. You've shot down my idea. Go on.
You are Somebody.
Cool. Strong start.
You are a person.
No, your name can be somebody. That's fine.
Yes, you're somebody Jones.
No, you're gonna need a better last name than that.
No.
That's gonna be the title.
No, you need Jones. You need something normal like that.
Somebody...
Macmillan.
Great, okay.
And you discover that you're actually a time traveler. You're not from this time. You thought you just had, like, amnesia or something.
Sure.
But no, it turns out that you've actually traveled into the past. And you discover this, like, on the last, like, 3 days before what you were supposed to time travel back to stop. And then it's, like, a mad dash because the government sent you back, right? To, like, fix whatever this problem was.
I'm sorry.
But you forgot for, like, 5 years.
Recommended for you. Netflix's Umbrella Academy.
That's true, yeah. That's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, dear, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oops.
But he hasn't had amnesia for 5 years in that.
I know, but still, it's pretty similar.
I'm adding to it. I'm riffing off it.
Yeah. Isn't Umbrella Academy? I assume it's already riffing off of the original comics.
Yeah, it's pretty loosely adapted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not. You can't do that.
What? Yes, I can.
I've shut it. Netflix's lawyers have shut it down.
No, you didn't let me finish.
Okay, go on.
It's not the apocalypse. It's just something bad. If the twist
at the end isn't that you actually came from the past, then I'm not interested. That you think that you're the daughter, but you're actually the mother.
It's Planet of the Apes, you mean?
Planet of the Apes is the future. Not a different planet.
Yes, but if you come from the past, that means you've gone into the future, right? But you think it's the past.
But they don't think it's the past on Planet of the Apes. They think it's a different planet.
Well, they think it's the present, at least, right?
Yeah, okay, I guess. Okay. Go on. I just wanted to get the twist out there for everybody.
If you don't know the twist of Planet of the Apes, are you alive?
They see the Statue of Liberty at the end.
And then he screams. But anyway, yeah, you think... And then you realize that actually what you've remembered was just an evil organization implanting memories in your head. And you've actually done exactly what they wanted you to do, so you have to go back to the future to fix it, you know?
Interesting.
This makes sense.
This is called Kingdom Hearts 3.5, Young Xehanort's story.
Well, we tried.
No. There's got to be a way to do this. It's a visual novel, but it's like all out of order.
So it's, I guess this isn't a visual novel before I say anything, but it's Beyond Two Souls.
Sure.
Great.
I don't know what that is.
It's a David Cage game with Ellen Page. So we've just circled back to the Umbrella Academy.
So it's a game about Ellen Page. Ellen Page would be a good
it would,
Remedy title.
It is. She was named in the style of Remedy Entertainment.
Keanu Reeves.
That's not quite right. Keanu is too out there of a name for them.
Fine. So we got a game. It's called Ellen Page. You play as Ellen Page, but not that Ellen Page. But it's voiced by Ellen Page. That's it. And you just talk to your friends. You can date some of them.
There you go. We've made a game. So call us, Ellen Page.
Remedy, do we have a title for you? Okay, so this comes to the part of the show where normally Emma would pick games from a hat.
Alright, so you need to open up your computer and search Mini Web Tools Random Picker. And you also need to open up our homepage. Okay.
Well, I think I understand how to do this. That means you have to do the
spiel. No.
Good luck.
I've never done this before. You have to be careful that you don't pick one we've already done, because there's definitely still some on that list.
Well, let's see if we can trust my memory.
Anyway, we're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @TalkThisPodcast. Make sure to follow us on all of those accounts. We share when our episodes go live, fun video game news, and whenever we put a blog post up. There haven't been any blog posts this week, just because it's the holidays. And
That's not true.
Oh, did Clickbait Boyfriend come out this
Heck
week?
yeah, it did.
Did it come out on Monday or something?
I posted it on a Monday, and then I put it on social media on Wednesday.
Okay, well, Clickbait Boyfriend came out. I'm just a huge liar.
It's pretty good. He fights a lot of bosses.
They're coming close to the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, just in time for whenever Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind comes out.
Supposedly at the Osaka concert yesterday, or 2 days ago, I don't really know how Japan time works, even though I was there, they said that in December there's going to be a new trailer.
Yeah. And the release date, too. And
Maybe.
Also that there's, like, a posable diorama mode where you can pose all your famous... So am I going to spend 50 hours there?
We can talk about this next week.
Yeah.
Go on.
Anyway, you're the one who got me sidetracked on it. I was just trying to talk about Clickbait Boyfriend, which is a series in which Clickbait Boyfriend plays Kingdom Hearts. And then we have Split Screen. We were watching not Boys Over Flowers anymore, but My Hero Academia and the new series Coffee Prince. Not that the Coffee Prince is new, but it's new for us.
This is a disaster.
You can read all about that, and we have some one-off vlogs every once in a while as well. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what you're doing with yourself, but you should. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, and Pandora, and many other places. And if you listen to a podcasting service regularly and we're not there, just let us know, and we will be there. We'll be there in a jiffy. Did I miss anything?
I wasn't listening that much to what you were saying, but I think you covered it more or less.
Okay.
Albeit... Nope, I won't even say that.
You know what? It's not my job, okay? Let's see how you do with the picking names.
Okay, great. Are you ready for our old game? This is very exciting. I don't think I've ever picked the names out of the hat.
Yes, I'm ready for our old game.
I almost was going to choose a file to import the names from a text file, so we're going strong.
See, it didn't used to do this, like, spinny thing, and now it does it.
Winner is... not on screen, below... Just Cause!
Is it Just Cause or Just Cuz? Or is it both?
How on earth would I know?
I think it's both. I think it's like a double meaning. Anyway, what's our new game?
Our new game is... not picked by hitting enter, let me tell you that. Is... Untitled Goose Game.
Oh, great. Both those games are about pretty much just making unbridled chaos. It'll be very fun.
Nice. So tune in next week. Not next week. Tune in next week. You should still tune in next week. Next week.
We're on TuneIn.
Next week. On TuneIn, of the podcast provider of your choice, you can hear Emma and I recap the games that we've been playing the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Our third edition of these. I hope that I have actually played a multitude of games this time.
I don't know if I can remember all the games I've played.
I think this will be our last time where we even breathe about Fire Emblem.
Until the new DLC comes out.
Forget it. We're a Fire Emblem podcast now. But, like, did Game Freak lie? Tune in!
To find out!
On TuneIn!
Do you want to give the sign off?
Well, first I want to say in 2 weeks you should tune in on TuneIn. This is not a sponsored podcast. To listen to us talk about Just Cuz or Just Cause or Just Cuz and Untitled Goose Game. But I will also go ahead and sign us off. That's usually been your thing lately. We're just really switching.
Just do it.
This week, I hope that you only relive the moments that you want to relive.